Welcome to this webinar by Product Circus. We're going to talk today with Ralph Jocham about roadmaps that work. And we'll do that for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end. I'll just introduce you guys to Product Circus. Our mission is to bring people together who are passionate about product value, outcomes, and working as a community to elevate the joy and meaning in product development. So right now, we do this through some practical training courses, some consulting through our associates, and also coaching. And in the near future, through validation through assessments also. So we're really interested and passionate about helping teams and companies and organizations create value through products that truly delight their customers. And if you're here to sharpen your skills or learn new things, we're happy to help you do that. We believe great products start with great people. All right.
So right now I'm somewhere here on the right-hand side in Switzerland. That's where I'm now living. Originally, I'm from Germany. I started to work as a programmer, kind of, I think, classical background as many people in the Agile environment have. Worked in Germany for about 2 years, then 2 years in England, 1 year in the East Coast, New York, and then 8 years on the West Coast in the Bay Area. And since 2009, I'm back in Europe. My wife, she's from the south of France. I'm from the south of Germany. So we agreed we meet somewhere in the middle, which would have been in the Italian Alps. So we settled for Switzerland, and now I'm living in Bern. Again, as I said, my background, programmer, developer, software engineer, however you call that. And through that, I basically came to Agile, came to Scrum, and came to product ownership, which I've been doing now internationally with many organizations in different setups, on-site, distributed, regulated, you name it. Don McGreal and myself, we wrote a couple of years back a book about product ownership. It's the green one here you can see on the left-hand side. There's also 2 articles in 97 Things Every Scrum Practitioner Should Know. And actually last Wednesday, John Coleman, Jeff Sutherland, and we released the Scrum Guide expansion pack, which you see also an image on here. Good. So been there, done it pretty much. So yeah, about 25 years of experience kind of living the Agile or talking the Agile, walking the Agile talk. That's what I wanted to say. Now, what I want you to do here is, Paul.
Real quick.
Hey, I should introduce myself too.
Yes, please.
Well, I'll keep it a bit shorter because I have not so much on my resume as well. My name is Paul Kuijten. I'm from the Netherlands, the Scrum capital of the world. I've been talking to people about Scrum and Agile for about 12 years now. Before that, I was a product manager, product owner, delivery manager, who knows what kind of manager. And before that, I was a developer, programmer. And we are now working on Product Circus, which is all about taking the next step, becoming more value-oriented. And that's a bit about me.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
The Netherlands, the capital of Scrum. I really wish that the Netherlands overtakes the rest of the world because then it would show, hey, Agile works, because we are the country with the highest density of Scrum practitioners. Therefore, we are better than you. That would be cool. That would be nice evidence. Now, back to this warming up exercise. So there's 5 questions, and I just want every one of you to look at those 5 questions, and I don't know, maybe you jot it on a piece of paper. Are they true or are they false?
Oh, Ralph, I can enable chat if we want to ask people to use.
Okay. Yes, I mean I'll have an eye on it, but you know, I'm good at multitasking, but it's kind of like edge case multitasking for me.
I got you.
I'll keep it.
Okay. So if you have my back, I'm all game. Okay, cool. Perfect. Then let me also open up the chat window so I see this as well. Perfect. So now back to those questions. It's very simple to correct because it's all false. What you have seen here pretty much does not describe a roadmap. It describes a release plan, or what's often also referred to as output thinking. And that's also the output trap. I believe that most roadmaps I see when I go to clients or in other places are release plans in disguise. What we often see is like what features we ship at a specific quarter. And also kind of, you see here like a year ahead. And again, this is release plan. And this is really delivering, shipping promised outputs, promised features. But the question is really, do we drive customer outcome? Do we do what's needed for them? Do we really help them to become better at their job or whatever they're doing? And that's the way I think about products. Products are there to make people's lives easier. And I think this is kind of like really where we want to focus on. Now, so what is the problem, the really underlying problem? So roadmaps are often seen as a fixed linear plan. And if we follow the plan and we do all of the things we have here in the plan, we will be successful. We ship value. So, but output is then mistaken for value. And also strategy is really detached from our approach. And when I talk about strategy, I really like to think along the lines of Roger Martin when he says basically he has this 5-step cascade where he said, what is our winning aspiration? So where is it where we really want to go to? What do we think? And this is where I think strategy is a choice. It's not something you own. It's something you believe in and you work for towards that. And essentially based on that, you decide where are we going to play? How will we win once we have chosen to play on that playing field? Which capabilities do we have to have in place to get there? And which management structures help us to get to those capabilities to actually be successful? And for me, a good example here is Meta. I mean, they were used to call Facebook, and their strategy was the metaverse. They had the goggles, they developed the software, they spent billions on that, they hired thousands of developers for doing that. And then AI came in between. Technology some need. And Apple was also kind of caught on the left foot, in my opinion, with their goggles and now with their Siri release, which got postponed again for another half a year. Yeah. So, even big companies are not really, sometimes it's a big bet you do, and that's your strategy essentially. But essentially, strategy should really have an eye on ongoing onto the market, onto the customer, and onto the technology. And this strategy then basically ties back into your roadmap. And what I often also see is that discovery and emergence is willingly ignored. And what do I mean with that? It's like, hey, we learned something. It doesn't fit in the plan. Let's not do it. Kind of like it's because often organizations think more along the lines is that we should be able to feel in control about what we're doing and ignore, like put on the blinders, what's really happening around us. So, and this really hinders product discovery and validation about what we're doing because we follow the plan. And I think also this also doesn't open us up for what's often referred to as design thinking, like really, okay, let's bring it in all the time and find out what makes sense in our given context. So what we need going forward is we need the decision points for adaptation. So roadmaps are not linear. And I'm not sure if you have ever seen a real roadmap where there is no crossing or intersection or junction or something like that. You always have to sometimes make a decision. Do I go left? Do I go right? Or do I stay straight on the road? So those decision points are then there to really use this empirical approach and to inspect and adapt and validate where we are with our current outcome and assess your environment, market, customer, technology, which as again, ties back to the strategy we just talked about before. And this basically makes me think like, how can we reframe the roadmap and the product strategy? That's your direction of travel. It's somewhere over there. You can't really say exactly there, but this is the broad direction we believe we have to go right now, because that's where we believe this is where the playing field will be our choice. And the roadmap we have to get to this place is the best known path we know. However, that is subject to change as we make progress, or maybe as the environment around us is going to change. And roadmaps should serve the product and not dictate it. Because sometimes you see, well, but that's in the plan, we have to do it. But if there's no evidence, if there's no strong indication that this is the right thing to do, you would do something which, yeah, we have it, but maybe nobody uses it. And the statistics are somewhat old, but so many features and products are not being used. That's one of my favorite questions to any product owner. Can you tell me which features of your product aren't used? That's really waste. It's like you design something, you implement something, you test something, you release something, and nobody uses it. And then you have to keep on maintaining it. Therefore, roadmaps are not for ease of management. Roadmaps are not there to make our lives easier. They are there to make a better product for our customers, that they're even more satisfied with what we deliver towards them. So now this is where my thinking really comes strong into the picture. And this is for what I like to bring in, this idea of the narrative. And I think, what about the past? Because we are here right now in this present, because something happened in the past, something was done in the past. And if this would have been different, we wouldn't be here. We would be some other place. But this happened, this is where we are, and this is where we want to go, our direction of travel. So our past informs our decision going forward. And I think we have been at organizations where they tell you stories, this happened 5 years ago, it was hilarious, or this guy did that. And kind of like, this is important because it gives you background information, which gives you more context if you have to make decisions or maybe find out to whom to talk to in certain situations. So history is not about what happened in the past, it's about the decisions which were made in the past. Because what you observe what happened in the past is based on decisions. So if we don't ignore the past, I think we're getting put in a better decision for today to make smarter decisions to hopefully have a better future. But again, it's not a linear process. It's something we have to do again and again. And I found this quote from Anna Pagiotou. It's a Greek name. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too much, which I think is really nice. It's, in the thick present, formed by the patterns of the past, sensing the patterns of the present, detecting the patterns of an emerging future. That's kind of really where we're in, and we are in there every day. And when I was reading that, I was remembering when my kids were going to preschool and kindergarten, that they had the song like, "Tomorrow, I love you tomorrow, tomorrow, you're always just one day away." And it's just like, every day, tomorrow is today, tomorrow. But then we think about it again, and this is how we make progress continuously. Now, going back to this concept of the narrative, so the power of the narrative, and this is really for me where storytelling in action becomes an important aspect. And I talked this about already, kind of what happened in the past, which decisions were made causing what happened, where do we want to go, and what does this mean for our present, for where we are right now, what we should be doing in regards to our present of travel. And it's like what I like to call the past, future, present thinking. So whenever we are like, when I go to a client, the first thing I do is I interview people and ask them like, what happened in the past? Tell me everything. And then I try to get this fabric where I get a good understanding about how is the organization set up, how does things work. The other thing is, and these are two exercises by Dave Snowden. One is called anecdote circles, and that's pretty much what I just mentioned. So basically I sit down with people. Now, but if you do a real anecdote circle, you put people together, a good microphone on the table in the center, and then you record it, and everybody tells their story. And then you have somebody, or you maybe do it yourself, or maybe these days you could use AI, just say, summarize everything. What is sticking out here? What's going on there? And again, this gives you a good understanding about the organization. And the other exercise, which I really like, is called future backwards. So let's say right now you are here at this beige hexagon. Now, if everything would work out perfectly, we would end up in utopia, the perfect future. Couldn't be any better. But then we can also think about, what would be the worst possible outcome? Dystopia. And then you take both utopia and dystopia, and you go backwards. What leads to utopia? Well, this and this and this. Okay, and now we are here, one hexagon before. Now, what led to this? Okay, this and this happened. This market did that, or this company went bankrupt. It could be anything. You come up with stories, essentially. And then you go backward, and you do the same thing with dystopia. And usually what happens is at some point, those hexagons, they merge. Now, this is the blue hexagon we have here. And this is a really important point, because if you find yourself in this scenario, in this narrative, you have to be very careful because, probably one of the next decisions we're going to make could set us on the left path or on the right path, utopia or dystopia. And then you can go back from this blue hexagon to the beige one. And then you get a feeling like, how do things emerge? And then you can always monitor it. Does it really behave like that? And if yes, maybe you had a good sense. If not, do it again and find out kind of like where things are off. And this is, I think, it's a really good exercise in that regard. The other thing is something which I got from Chris Wilkerson, and he uses it for vision creating, but I use it for narrative creation, and essentially can think about it like bingo. Essentially, you want to check off, if possible, all 9 elements once you go ahead and you create your narrative, the story behind so many things. So if you tell it in the form of a story, right top, you can check this off. Maybe just say, we have observed, observation, check off. Therefore, we have some insights, check off. And we believe this would be an opportunity to go into this area with these features. And then, so you know what I'm telling you here right now. So you could really go through that, and it's a good structure, gives you some good guidelines. And then you would have a story which you can give to other people there as well. Now, what we have here is what's often referred to as the product management onion. Normally, what we see is that every organization has a vision where they're coming, where they want to go, essentially. Based on that, they derive their business strategy, we just talked about. Now, based on that strategy, you might have one or more products. So, and then for each one of those products, you would come up with a strategy, how you think you can achieve that. And then once you have that, you can think about what is the most valuable thing we could be doing and how can we do it? Value and solution discovery. And then you basically do it and you validate whether this was successful. So top down, that's your narrative, and the purple arrow going bottom up, that's the top down is the roadmap, and bottom up is essentially the narrative, because, and it's a little bit weird to look at that. So once I had this created, I thought, oh yeah, it makes sense, but it's hard to understand. And then I found this, which I think is much cleaner, better to understand. So essentially, the gray triangles, this is kind of where we are, and we go from left to right. And every time we make a step forward, basically the thing shifts again. And we always try to hone in on something. So this is why it's narrowing down. And then there were some events in the past. Some of them were planned, expected. So this would be the green ones. Yes, we think this will happen, and great. So we got confirmation. And then unexpected events. And I think we all have experienced big unexpected events in the past couple of years. So that brings us into today. And then now the green triangle going forward, widening, that's where we believe we should be going. But again, you see, like, the further you look ahead, the less precise you are, the more chances is that entropy around you is changing things. So there's the circle of control, that's ours. Then there's the circle of influence, yeah, we can manipulate that. And then there's the circle of concern. So the further you look, the more concern you have, essentially. Now, this whole length of the green triangle is your roadmap distance, if you want to think about that, and maybe something shorter could be that's our release plan. That's what we think we should be doing in the next 2 months, feature-wise. And based on that, you basically then go into the future. Now, if you map that more into the context, if you work with Scrum, it would look like that. So on the left-hand side, no surprise, there's the past. On the right-hand side, we have the product vision, which might shift a little bit depending on where we are, kind of what we are learning. If it totally changes, no, it wouldn't be then a pivot. It would be not a preserver. It would be kind of maybe you throw it out and do something completely new. So past, then we have today. Then we have our next product goal. And for me personally, product goal is like 4 to 6 months into the future. So the next product goal will probably be like November, December timeframe. So by November, we would like to have this set of type of product or part of a product. And then you work towards that with your sprints, kind of like big vision, product goal, sprint goal. And then you try to meander your way to the product goal. And along the way, you would learn. And the green dotted line, that's your direction of travel. This is where you want to move on as much as possible. But you inspect and adapt, you change as you learn. And once you get closer to your product goal, hopefully the next product goal shapes up and says, okay, if we achieve that, and it looks like everything is going to work out, and we have probably the evidence right now that actually the outcomes we are anticipating are happening. And then based on that, you can then say, okay, the next product goal would be meaningful for this one here as well. And so here, this is where I put everything together. It's the product goal canvas. So essentially, let me just go ahead here and talk you quickly through that. So at the top right, this is your vision. And I'm not going too much into detail here right now. So you probably know how to create a product vision. So you would put it on there. Now, the product goal, which we have on the top left, is really simple. It's one sentence. And maybe you start off by when. So by November, we would like to have this type of product with these features, let's say in Spain, because we think Spain is the most prominent market in Europe where these features are needed. But again, just one sentence. Vision, one sentence for the product goal. And then below you have the description. And this is really important because this description is the narrative why you believe that this product goal is the right product goal. So there you wouldn't quantify what you're going to do. You would just say kind of, and this is where the 3x3 approach could come into picture, like observations. We have observed that people are struggling with their tax returns. And therefore we believe if we could do this, it can really give them the context about, but it doesn't have to be precise. It could just be, we believe we should do something to simplify the auditing process, something along those lines. Now, the idea is that if you put somebody in front of that, just, this is the vision, this is what we would like to have by November, and this is the reasoning for that, the narrative. And they should look at you and just, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think they did a good job. Now, but how do we know that we actually have been successful? And this is where the valuable outcome and measures comes into the picture. So the top part is where you, in textual description, would describe how would you see that the outcome has been achieved. Maybe 1 or 2 sentences, something along those lines. And again, this is something, if you struggle to put your thoughts or your outcome into words, I would challenge you and just say, I don't believe you know what you really want. Yeah, you just have we need to do something, but something isn't clear yet for you. And you wouldn't even know if you achieved something because you don't know what you want to measure. So first of all, you describe it in a textual form, and then you bring measures or metrics into place. And this is also where I think along the lines of 4DX, 4 disciplines of execution, because we want to achieve something in the future, but how can we measure today that we are on the right track? Now, what can we measure leading? If you want to reduce your cholesterol, can't run the test every day. Now, what you could do is you can just maybe do some research, just say more exercise, less of this food, more of that food, and some other things. And this is something you can measure leading every day. And in half a year, once you get the blood work done again, you would hopefully have the evidence. Yes, this helped. It was the right approach. So this differentiation between what can we measure now or do now. So leading things can also be in this regard here activities. Leading could be we need to talk to 100 potential customers and see if they really have this problem, what we believe we should fix to them. So the problem definition. And then lagging could be, 10% of the customers who fit our profile sign up for this service. We want to have this market share, something along those lines. And this would be the left column, market and user. On the right-hand side are the internal capabilities. Often we have to build something up in order to achieve something. Maybe we have to train people in certain technologies or certain domains. Maybe we have to build up some specific infrastructure. Now, lagging could be how much automation build pipelines do you have? Things along those lines, kind of like what infrastructure would be in place. And I believe that many organizations, they focus too much on the left-hand side and not enough on the right-hand side, the internal capabilities. Because if you have good internal capabilities set up, the business stuff becomes easier. You can just essentially do it and deliver more frequently to your customers. And maybe something lagging internal capabilities is like release frequency. We are able to make a release every day. If we want to, we don't have to. Now, the next thing, which is also important, are the stakeholders. Because often when we talk about stakeholders, everybody thinks, oh, that's the end user. Yes, not only though. There's so many other people, and we have influencers. So these could be important people within your organization who could really kind of push the product in another direction, maybe even cancel it. But also external. Maybe there's some power users, some important people, and if they say this is a bad product, that would really hurt. If they say this is a good product, this would be best advertising. So how can we make sure that how do we cope with those? Provider is obviously, these are all the the people, organizations we are depending on. If they do not deliver, we would have a problem. So, and then governance. We have external governance, laws, regulations we have to follow. But then also maybe internal governance. Maybe we have to deliver specific numbers to specific departments at a specific intervals schedule. So essentially, this is also an important point because you need to try to keep all of those stakeholders as happy as possible, but it's not always possible to keep all of them happy. Sometimes you have to make hard trade-off decisions. And this is kind of also the way you talk with them. You will talk different to users than from people with governance or influencers. Now think about how you can engage with them as well. Then risks, that is kind of like, these are the risks which are not mitigated, handled yet, which are still like dangling like Damocles sword on top of our head, and they could hit us anytime. So just to make sure they're present in front of us, we don't forget about them. And no, not the elephant in the room, everybody squeezes around, but nobody talks about them and make them miserable. And if you work with Scrum, this would be essentially at the right column is the people working on that. Because also evidence shows that dedicated people work better because they can bring in the focus, they learn to work together as a team. So who are the dedicated people working on that? If you work with Scrum, you would have your product owner, your developers, maybe even a scaled setup where you would then have more teams actually working for that. And for this point, how many Scrum Masters or Agile coaches or who else would you have to handle that? So I've been working with this canvas for quite some time, and it really served really well for me as well. Now, if you go back to this one here, you can really see like how this then also would more like fit together. So you would have the vision, which you have described, maybe in another document, and then you would have your product goal, which is your next big mid station, essentially, where you want to find your way towards. But because of the description, the narrative, the outcome description, the measures, the stakeholders, you would always know how are we doing, and you can measure that more intensively. So, excuse me. So a roadmap, which is also based and works with measures and metrics, clarifies for you what success would look like. And this is one of the question I really like to ask people. We need this and this and this, and say, okay, interesting. But if we would have all of that, what would success look like for you? Can you just describe this for me? And then the people take a breath, lean back, and start to think. That's again also something which is important, and then write this down because that's the outcome you want to achieve essentially in textual form. But this also then enables you to, once you have the measures and metrics in place, to use really evidence-based management, EBM, to track your progress, leading, lagging, where are you? And all of that basically helps you to be informed all the time about what makes sense in a specific situation if decisions have to be made. And one of the important points in that field is budgeting. Because most organizations are still stuck in this old mindset. Once a year, project gets approved, scope, time, schedule, and then if you deliver on time, on scope, and budget, you did a good job. Being on time, on scope, and budget is more important than delivering the right customer outcome, the value. I don't go into detail too much here. I think this is a common, well understood problem anyway. But if you have that, and maybe you can go to a rolling budget where every 3 months you would then look at all the different roadmaps you have in your organization and see which one is doing good, which one isn't doing so good, where's the priorities. Maybe you want to bring one higher, this one a little bit less, and shift people or money around. Being agile essentially as an organization. And by doing this, kind of looking at this in parallel regularly, this really also then drives alignment within your organization. And also roadmaps helps with stakeholder engagement. I talked about this a little bit about already, but essentially every stakeholder has a specific mindset, and they usually want to know, where are we headed? Why does this matter? How does it affect me or my team? And what is the level of uncertainty or risk we have? And how will we know if it's working or not working? And it's kind of like, I think if you have these informations in place and you can answer those questions, you have a much better, transparent and helpful relationship with your stakeholders in that regard. So for me, roadmaps are like rivers. If you look back, you see exactly where they're coming from. And then we are here right now in this junction, maybe on the riverside, and that's something we control. And then we see where this is probably going, and hopefully, no surprises. And if a roadmap is done well, it creates alignment and clarity. And for me, a roadmap is not just like this document you create. It's for me really a powerful communication tool if you do it well and if you bring the right table and think stakeholder management engagement together and talk them through and show them. And this would then also go back to, oops, wrong button, to this question here, like, why are we doing this? What is the outcome we want to achieve for you? Kind of like, I think every stakeholder or every person affected by what we do, it's not that they want to be a pain for us. I think it's also they have a concern, a valid concern. What could go wrong? How could this negatively impact me, my career maybe, or the organization or my department within the organization? And if we do this well, I think we have a much better communication with those people and they get better understanding what's going on, and that forms trust. And I think trust within an organization is something always good to have. And again, the roadmap gives you the direction of travels. Now, quick summary here. And now, if somebody shows you a roadmap, which is plan driven, like this and this and this, no good. Because this is really where you go back to this defined thinking. This is the sequence. And once we do that, we will be golden. Everything will be perfect. Because the reality is we have this cone of uncertainty. Things will widen up. The more we go into the future, the less precise, accurate we are. Because time plays a role, because the more time there is, the more entropy can affect us. But then also the likelihood that we still work in the complex, or maybe even borderline chaos. And unsurprising, the unknown unknowns will always get us at some point. Something which we never thought about could happen will happen overnight. So that's why we really need this realistic roadmap. And when I was typing that, I just say, how should I describe that? And I say, today is today and tomorrow is tomorrow. It's like, no, let's focus on what is today, but let's also know what is tomorrow, because we want to know where we want to go. So if you go on a hike into a mountain, you know where the peak is, but you always look down and you make sure your next step is right. Yeah, you don't slip, and you don't run too fast, because otherwise, you might get out of breath and so on. So we continuously inspect our scope, the environment, and our customer needs. And we are intentionally adjusting as more information is available for a better future. And the narrative, kind of the stories behind that, this really shapes our path. And then kind of at these points, you would then make adjustments. And that could be a good point when you also think about budget, stakeholder engagement, kind of how often should we bring those people then here together. And now I think kind of this this triangle here is also a nice way of going back to this future backwards, because right now we are at the left side. This is where we are. And, because of the cone of the uncertainty you have going further into the future, in this triangle, we have utopia and we have dystopia. So the very best outcome and the very both worst outcome are both possible in that regard. So don't ignore the past. Work with the narrative. Envision a better future. That's the why you're doing what you're doing. Shape the present you are in right now with what you do and how you do it. Focus on outcomes for your users and use the result feedback you get from that, from your users, but also technology environment. And for this, you have to have boundaries in place and signals. If something shifts, I have a really old car, and I have one feature, like if it's less than 4 degrees Celsius, ping, there's a light coming on the dashboard telling you it's cold outside. There might be black ice. So be careful if you go around curves. Don't be too fast. Now, this is a signal. It tells me, hey, I adjust accordingly. So what are the signals which are important for our product, which should really kind of maybe ring an alarm bell? This is happening, or hey, this is happening and this is good within the context of our boundaries. And then while we do this, we have to insert those decision points so that we can really frequently inspect and adapt. And once we have done that, we go back to one and we repeat. So roadmap is not a single document you do once. It's something which you live every single day. You would have some documents. You would have a product goal canvas. You would have a vision. You would have a product backlog probably if you work with Scrum. But then this is all living in the communication, and everything put together makes it work essentially. Okay, thank you very much. So that was my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ralph. We have a couple minutes. If anybody joining us today, if you have any questions for Ralph, you can put them in the Q&A, you can put them in the chat, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. But yeah, we'll give you a couple minutes to think about if you have any questions. And while you're doing that, I'll just let you know that you can find Product Circus at any of these places. We're at productcircus.org. We're also on LinkedIn and meetup.com if you want to hear about future webinars or new trainings or what's just going on in our world as we try to improve the profession of product or value development even. So we hope this contributes to that, and we hope we can connect with you somehow in the future as well as here. And I'll paste those links in the chat to everyone. And also,
Where can we find the presentation material? Sabrina, I'll give it
yes,
to you and you handle it, okay?
the slides will be available for download on productcircus.org. There's a menu item in the top navigation called webinars, and I will send, actually, I think through Zoom, there will be an email that you receive after the webinar that will give you the direct link to what I'm talking about. But it's productcircus.org/webinars, and we will make the slides and the recording available there this week. Great question.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Oh, okay. No questions. So thank you for being here.
And if you do think of any questions in the future, is there some place that people can get a hold of you, Ralph?
I'm also on LinkedIn, so just type in Ralph
Okay.
Jocham or Google me. You will find my website. Yeah, so
Perfect. Beautiful.
socially findable.
Awesome. And we just have one more ask for you before you go. We have a short feedback form that takes 2 minutes, and you can help us improve the webinar experience for yourself if you come to a future one, or for other people who join us in the future. So we'd really appreciate that. And thank you very much for coming and spending your evening with us if you're in Europe, or your afternoon if you're in the US, or anywhere else. We really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Ralph.
Thank you.